listen to it through YouTube. That's what I said, if you want to learn it.
I see.
Hello. Hello. Hello.
You're on.
I'm on. I'm on. Hello. Is it because the... Oh, hold on. Hello. Just going to keep saying hello. Hi. Do we need to hold it? Okay. Oh, can you hear me? Sort of. Sort of. Hello. Hello. Shouting at everyone. T-shirt. Brilliant. Welcome to Fusion Meetup. This is just so to make sure we can pick it up for the live stream. So first of all, this is a bit new. A little bit new. Flustered, this venue is amazing. Still trying to find my way around all the different crevices of just this floor 2. Who's had a chance to have a look at the vaults yet? It was really good. It's really good. If you haven't, I don't think you've even got time to do that, so you're just going to have to take our word for it. But it was just great, really, really good. I found out there was a secret vault somewhere that me and Bryson and Matt didn't see. There's 2 vaults. Have you seen that? Yeah? Anyway, well, we can't go back down, so we're just going to have to take everyone's word for it. There you go. There'll be pictures on Twitter and whatnot, that's fine. So, welcome to Fusion. Thank you all for joining us at this new venue. We are trialling this venue out today, so I might send out a email just to get some feedback afterwards, just to see how people have found the experience here. But what a great building, so thank you for Birmingham University for having us here. As we said last time, I've copied Jim's slides, Fusion Meetup is 8 years old this year! Yay! Still going strong. So here we go. So, first of all tonight we need to give a shout out to our sponsors. Our wonderful headline sponsors are Infobip. We have got Mike Elsmore with us tonight, who is wearing his Infobip hat and kind of his Fusion hat, not literally. He's doing it, he's a man of many jobs this evening, sorry Mike. But Mike will be talking later on this evening as well. So thank you to Infobip for sponsoring us for the whole of this year, for all of 2023. The next shout out goes to DWP Digital. We have a short video to run for them. I don't know if anyone made it to the last event, but we were lucky enough to have Tom Chamberlain, who did an incredible talk last time. It was absolutely brilliant. If you did miss it, we have still got those talks available on our YouTube channel as well, so you can catch up there. So this is where we hope that tech is my friend this evening. Here we go. Oh dear.
P Digital. That's digital with purpose. That's digital with people, passion and progress at our heart. We build and maintain user-friendly digital services that enable millions of people to access the help, advice and financial support they need. And we're doing this by creating a culture where every person matters, where we achieve together, where we rise to challenges, where we deliver innovative work with lasting impact, and where everyone feels supported to grow and shape their career. Our story is evolving. Together, we will develop world-class digital services that will benefit society and create a better future for generations to come. We want every single one of us to understand the part we play in achieving this vision, to realise the value we add and the difference we make, because we are DWP Digital.
Oh,
We are.
okay, we don't need to do that again.
That's digital. With purpose. That's digital.
I mean, we can do it again if you want to do it again. Don't think we need to. There we go. Okay. Am I being any help? Anyone want to give me some tips? Here we go. Fantastic. Vicky was ready to go. So that was our sponsors, DWP Digital. As mentioned, we have got Tom here this evening. So if anyone, I've just nominated you, Tom, if anyone's got any questions about DWP Digital or the new team that's here in Birmingham, feel free to grab Tom in the break. We are having a break this evening. We're going to run 2 talks first, and then we'll have a 15-minute break for people to grab some drinks and go to toilet break, etc. So we are still looking for sponsors. We have 2 more events that we're going to run this year. Our next one is going to be on September the 14th and then November the 23rd. So there are still 2 events to happen this year. So if you would like to be a sponsor of Fusion, then please get in touch with us. Okay, here we go. So sponsors, speakers, bloggers, you get the gist. Have a look at the website. Also the cakes, yeah, so please take some photos. I know some of you have got some really good photos from the vaults and also just from the building space itself. So make sure that you tag Fusion, #Fusion Meetup into it. So just to give our partners a quick shout out, you can see them all on the screen. They're amazing. We work really closely with each other. So thank you for sponsoring us. And there's also some great other meetups there that are part of the Tech Mids group. We've got some of their representatives and organisers here as well this evening. That said, the next Tech Mids conference, if people didn't make the one in June, the next one is on Friday the 20th of October. So you can get tickets. Are tickets live yet?
You can join the waitlist.
Hey, there you go. Join the waitlist. So check out that link. The tickets will go, and they did go last time. So is there a selection of free tickets first up, and then it's chargeable after? Who knows? No one knows. Not even Alistair knows. So all the best. Have a look at that link, and maybe we'll see you there on the 20th of October. Okay, so just a shout out to some of our friends who run some other meetups in Birmingham City Centre, some dates for you to be aware of. Dylan Beattie, Dave, where are you? Legend, we don't need a some workshops with us. Next we have Brun.js, which is on Thursday the 31st of August. Again, sign up for these on Meetup. Now we do have a code of conduct for our event as always. We ask that people are kind and respectful of each other. If you do see any behaviour that you're not happy with or you don't feel comfortable with, please tap one of the Fusion bods that are dotted around the room. Can we, Fusion people, can you put your hand up so we know where you are? Aaron's over there. We've got 2 here, they're too busy doing tech stuff. Bryson is one of our volunteers as well. B, one of our volunteers over here. So please feel free to grab people if you need any help. Okay, so, oh my God, who wrote this slide? I hadn't checked the slide. I hadn't checked the slides before I did this, so enough of me. Andy, thanks, And. So here are the talks. So today we have Jess Rose, we have Joe Rowe, we have Jayne Scarman, and we have Mike Elsmore. First up, we have Joe Rowe from Monzo. Okie dokie.
I was expecting a US. Oh, they're on mute.
Flick you off mute.
Hello. Can you hear me? Cool. Okay.
Joe Rowe from Monzo. Yay!
I don't have any. Bear with me. Talk amongst yourselves. We should have slides. Just try again.
All right. Oh, that's a new screen. I pressed the wrong button. I'd like to carry on. You do your thing.
I can't do it. It's gone away. What's that? Okay, we're there. I'm ruining the surprise now. You know who I am. Right, let me go. Bear with me one moment. Okay, how's that? We got it? Okay, hello everyone. So I'm going to talk about how we support Get Paid Early. And I am Joe Rowe. I'm a production engineer at Monzo. It's kind of an SRE style role. I embed into teams and we work on some kind of tech debt problem or something ambiguous and fun, and I go off and do that. Today I'm going to talk about who we are. I'm going to talk about a feature called Get Paid Early that we offer, a problem that caused for us and how we solved it. Before I start, a quick show of hands. Who's a Monzo customer in the room? Awesome, nice. Okay, you're all going to get like £1,000 in your account. That's not legally binding. To start with, who are we? So, first and foremost, Monzo is a bank, and that's at the heart of all of our technical decisions, and it gives us a specific set of requirements that our technology has to meet. So our customers need to rely on us 24/7. And on top of that day-to-day kind of requirement, we have to be able to scale our platform to an audience that's always growing. We have to react quickly to new regulations and new things that our customers want. And of course, we need to keep our customers' money and their data safe. So we have a lot of constraints on what we can do and a lot of things we have to make sure we get right. So we run a microservices architecture, and we've sort of taken that to the extreme. We've got about 2,500 microservices in production, and they let us deploy and scale our services individually. For example, we've got a service for Monzo Flex, which is our kind of credit offering. We've got a service for user accounts and a service for POTS, which is a savings account. And teams can work on these without interrupting each other. Some services are bigger, like our ledger, for example, and some are very, very tiny. But they're all little microservices running around. So we use a shared platform for these, and this looks a little bit complicated, so don't worry, I will break it down. We'll go through it gradually. Underneath all of it, we run on AWS across multiple availability zones. By default, our services have 3 to 6 replicas across 3 availability zones, and that gives us that resilient property, because if one of them is down, we can still serve traffic. For our compute, we use Kubernetes, and that's how we control CPU, memory, number of replicas, things like this. We use distributed key value stores for storing data. So historically, that was Cassandra. We're currently migrating towards Amazon's managed version, which is key spaces. But from our engineers' perspective, this is the same. Engineers, if we change something completely different, as long as the interface was the same, they wouldn't notice. And we use Envoy for our service mesh. That lets us control how services handle API requests and how they talk to one another. So services can also communicate via queues, and we use Kafka and NSQ for that. So we've built abstractions on top of these so that they're used in a consistent way. We mostly use Kafka to organize work queues, and we use NSQ to get events into our data warehouse. And alongside that, we use Prometheus for our service metrics. So each service exposes a metrics endpoint. Prometheus scrapes that and aggregates the data, and we can monitor service health in things like Grafana. We can set alerts and route them to engineers via Slack and PagerDuty. So probably very similar to the sort of architectures that I guess most people have probably seen in some way or another. And we have more stuff that goes on, a couple of other Amazon services, but these are the important ones that give you like the context of what I'm going to talk about. So the one thing they've all got in common is that they cost us money. And we can reduce that cost to 0 if we just turn everything off, right? But probably customers wouldn't appreciate that. So the other thing we can do to reduce that cost is to cut waste and only provision the resources that we actually need. That sounds like a really good idea, right? If we know what we need to support, we can only support that much, a little bit above. Why wouldn't we do that? Well, we had one feature that was kind of preventing us from being able to do that, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. Get paid early. So who in the room uses get paid early? Interesting, right? 2 people. So like nearly everyone is a customer, but 2 use get paid early. Okay, so let's talk about get paid early. Get paid early is a really nice feature. It's got confetti, which is like the most important thing, but it's very magical, very delightful. What it does is, if you're getting a BACS payment, I'll talk about BACS in a moment, if you're getting a BACS payment, we will let you kind of drag the money into your wallet, things burst out, and you get paid that money a day before you would typically get it with another bank. So customers really like this. The best thing about it is on Halloween, you drag candy into a pumpkin and all candy pops out. So very, very different to kind of the experience you get with kind of legacy banks. So BACS is Bankers Automated Clearing System, and it's a payment scheme where debits and credits go through this. It's kind of like a network between banks. They take 3 days to process. So on day 1, the payment goes in. Most people's salaries, for example, are paid with BACS, right? So on day 1, it goes into the system. On day 2, it gets processed, and on day 3, it gets paid out. And senders can cancel that payment up to a point. So that point is like 4 p.m. the day before it's going to be paid. After that, they can't cancel it anymore. So why do we make you wait till the next day when we know that you're going to get that money, right? And that's what we support, is that we can just give you the money straight away. So what problem does that cause for us? So here's that microservice architecture again. We have a service which is service API get paid early. We have a consistent naming convention for our services. So our client will talk to the API services, and behind that there's a bunch of like normal services that do the actual business logic. So behind service get paid early is service get paid early. And what happens is people can come along and they can say, hey, can I get this money early? And the API will just say, no, you can't, come back later. At some point it becomes eligible, and that point is 4 p.m. So what happens is 4 p.m. rolls around, and loads of customers all come and want to get paid early. But that's not the end of the story, because we don't just give them the money and then they close the app and go about their day. They immediately start doing things with the money. So they might use Salary Sorter, they might move money to a pot, they might settle a shared tab, set up a scheduled payment, make a flex payment, or withdraw money at an ATM. All these sorts of activities put load across the system, and it's really intensified because we've incentivized all of our customers to come and do this bang on 4 p.m. So that problem is actually worse because people won't go and do all of these things equally, right? So more people might use salary sorter than move money to a pot, or more people might settle a shared tab than make a flex payment. So not only do we not know which of our 2,500 microservices are going to get hit with this traffic, we also don't know how badly hit they're going to get. What we do know is if they're not going to have a big problem. So this is exacerbated at particular times of the year. This is from last year, so December, the 22nd of December, before Christmas, right? A point where people actually really want their money more than ever. And also that Friday was a bank holiday. So all of the payments from that Friday were actually payable on the Thursday. And then the Monday was a bank holiday. So the payments that were due on that Monday fell back to the Friday, which were payable on the Thursday. And the same deal for the 27th, that Tuesday also fell back. So we end up compounding, and you get loads and loads more payments available on particular days. This normally happens at the end of the month on payday, something like the big day. But particular times like Christmas, we will get like much more traffic than we would normally get. And that's a problem. Here's why that's a problem. This is a graph from Grafana that shows you the CPU utilization in cores for our account service. Can you guess where the get paid early event happened, right? And here's our service feed. So notice on our account service, we go from about 60 something cores to 140. On feed, we go from about 5.5 to 10.5. So it's a much smaller increase on feed, but it's still proportionally the same. It's like a doubling of traffic. So you might be thinking, big deal, just auto-scale, right? That's what auto-scaling is for. We do it all the time. We always soak up traffic. But the problem with auto-scaling in this scenario is how quickly the traffic increases. So notice here, within 2 minutes, we've gone from 60 cores to 140. And if we zoom in on that, we can see that when it really kicks off, at like the first 30 seconds, we've added like, 10 cores. Then in the next 30 seconds, we've added maybe 30 and another 30. And there's no way that we would be able to provision pods automatically to soak up that traffic. So what would happen is the existing pods would be overwhelmed. They'd all start timing out. They'd start running out of memory. They'd start dying. Now there's even less of them to serve traffic. And this would be happening across the entire platform. We'd have loads and loads of pods loads of services trying to schedule more pods because they know they don't have enough capacity. That would take time. They would not be able to schedule in time because they're at the back of a queue, and we would just get a huge storm of errors across the entire platform. And that would happen at the point where our customers thought they were about to get paid early. So the worst possible time. This is what this would look like. So the pending pod story is that in Kubernetes, when you add a pod, it goes through a pending phase, then it schedules, it finds somewhere it can fit, then it gets up and starts running and serving traffic. But that takes time. And that's why we can't just auto-scale to solve this. So what would that look like for engineers? It would look like this. This is a Google image of a scared engineer. So imagine that, but across the entirety of Monzo. This is what we want to avoid, right? So you might be thinking, well, given that story you just told, how did this thing ever work, right? Because I've got paid early before, so it must be working. This is how it used to work. We were over-provisioned. And remember I said at the start, everything costs us money, right? So this was costing us much more money than we needed to be spending. In this example, you can see that at the point we took this reading, we were kind of asking for 6,000 cores, and we were using about 2,000 of them. But we're paying for 6,000, and we're only using 19% of what we're asking for. And that gets a lot worse at like the 2 o'clock in the morning sort of time, where we're using hardly anything, but we're still paying for 6,000. We can't reduce that because we know this spike of traffic is going to happen for get paid early, and it's too dangerous for us to do that. So this was the problem that we needed to solve. So the solution, what did we do about this? The problems we've got to solve are, we don't know how much traffic is going to hit us at 4 p.m. We don't know where that traffic is going to go. And we don't know what impact it's going to have when it gets there. So let's break these down and we'll solve them one by one. So the first one was we don't know how much traffic was going to hit us. So remember I said this traffic is all for BACS payments. And BACS payments come into the system in advance, they go through processing, then they get paid out. So actually we know how many BACS payments we're going to pay out each day. This gives us a brilliant proxy metric for how much traffic we can expect. We store that in BigQuery each morning, which means we're able to query and look up like how much traffic am I going to get tomorrow, how much did I get yesterday. So the more BACS payments are coming in, if it tells us today you've got 50,000 payments to make, probably not going to be a big get paid early. If it tells you you've got 500,000, might be a huge get paid early. So we've solved the first problem, right? We've got a proxy metric, we know how much traffic is potentially going to hit us in the worst case at 4 p.m. We can scratch that one off. The next one is that we don't know where it's going to go. So this gets a little bit more difficult. But we've got a tool that we can use to help us, and that tool is Jaeger. Hands up, who's familiar with Jaeger? Who's familiar with like tracing in general? Okay, so Jaeger lets us trace requests through our system. When you've got 2,500 microservices, tracing the path that they flow through is really, really useful. This image is from Jaeger's website, so this isn't Monzo data here. But what you can see is that we've got spans running horizontally and traces vertically. So a trace is a collection of spans, and a span is basically how much time the request took in a particular part of your system. So on this one, we can see we kind of run through the front end down to something in customer, something in MySQL. Then after that, it goes down to front end driver, down through Redis. This is really, really useful to work out where traffic is going and to identify bottlenecks in your system. So remember at the start, I told you about our microservices, and I said they have particular naming conventions. So like service.api, that means the client is going to talk to it. Service.iapi means it's an internal API. And service.whatever is just a back-end service that's going to do some business logic. The problem is that our API services, we know the client's going to hit them, but we don't know how that traffic is going to bubble out and how it's going to go through the system. And that's always changing because we're always adding things and modifying things. But we would get spans that look a little bit like this, right? So in this example, we can see that a request would come in to service API feed. It would hit our user service, which would then hit our auth service. That would come back up to feed. It would then hit our feed service. And we can kind of build a graph from this. So we know that service API feed hits user, auth, and feed. Those three services are involved in serving user traffic. And if we do that for every single request that starts with service.api, then we build up a kind of a graph of every possible service involved in serving back-end traffic. And Jaeger lets us do that, which means we now know, we don't know exactly where the traffic's going to go, but we know where it could go. So we've solved this question, right? Now we know how much traffic we're going to get. We know where it might possibly go. Okay, the third one is we don't know what impact that traffic's going to have when it gets there. So this is a problem because we can't say, okay, well, traffic's going to go to our account service and our feed service. Well, what do we do about that? No idea. But Prometheus comes to the rescue. Anyone familiar with Prometheus? Anyone familiar with like the concept of metrics? Oh, cool. So Prometheus allows us to get the graphs like I showed before, where we can see what our CPU utilization was like for our account service. And we can do that with a PromQL of the CPU cores used for some service. And thanks to BigQuery storing how many BACS payments we got every day, we're able to kind of pinpoint when we want to run that query for. So I could say, for example, if I'm going to get 150,000 payments today, what was the date most recently where we did 150,000 payments? Then I can look for each service, okay, how much CPU did that service need when we did 150,000 payments the other day? If it needed 60 cores, I'll give it 60 cores today, plus a little bit on top. So that means that now we have a great is going to have. So point 3 solved as well. So at this point, we can say, okay, great, we're ticking everything off. Congratulations, we've solved the problem. Get paid early now we can do it with just the resources we need. But let's put that all together for a moment and see what it looks like. So we've got a service here that's our GPE, Get Paid Early, planning service. And that uses Jaeger to work out which services to scale. And it uses a combination of Prometheus and BigQuery to work out how much we should scale them by. We publish actions for these that gets consumed by our deployment scaling service. And each of those actions is something like, for service foo, go from 3 replicas to 10 replicas, and go from 500 millicores to 1 core. Deployment scaling service will actually talk to Kubernetes and perform the scaling, but we also store that record into Cassandra, because it's not good enough if we just say, can you please increase the capacity of this service? We need to know what did it go from and what to, so that we can roll it back afterwards. Otherwise, we're only ever going to scale up. And we want to crucially be able to scale back down again. So we work out in GP planning, what do we need to do? We tell deployment scaling service, deployment scaling does it and saves a record of what it did. This is what that looks like on a timeline. So 6 a.m., we know how many payments we're going to have for tomorrow, which means how many payments we're going to allow today. At 12 p.m., we scale everything up, all of our services. And at 4 p.m., GPE happens, people come and get paid early. And at about 5 o'clock, we roll everything back again when the traffic is all gone and we're back to normal. And here's what that looks like. The yellow spiky line is CPU utilization, and the blue dashed line is the requested resources for this service. So you can see that at about 1 p.m., we started incrementally requesting more resources for this service. It boosted way above what it needed. At 4 p.m., the GPE happened, and the traffic spike hit us, and we were scaled up so much that we could just deal with that traffic like it was nothing. Then at about 3:30, we drop down and we roll back, and then we have this graceful return to kind of just using as much CPU as we need. And that, the way it kind of trails down, that will happen even as we go into 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, and we get down to hardly needing anything. It will go down there as well. Here's, we wanted our solution to be dynamic. We didn't want to hard code this, right, and just say, here's the 50 services that you've got to scale up. Because when one of those changes, or when we add a new service, we now have to update our handling. Otherwise, GPU is going to break. And this would probably happen quite a lot because we're moving really quickly. But we didn't hard code anything. We talked to Jaeger to work out what services. So nothing's hard coded. We wanted it to be organic and grow alongside our platform. And because we're talking to Prometheus and basing it on recent data, it means that we're always getting a view of like, what did this thing need most recently when it had the same volume of traffic, which means that as a service gradually starts to do more work, we kind of will increase it in line with that. We also wanted this to be automatic. We didn't want to bother humans with this. We didn't want to introduce toil and a process where we tell people, hey, be afraid, it's nearly 4 p.m, can everyone start doing stuff? And we've got that. This just happens all secretly in the background. There are alerts, so if it doesn't work, it starts telling people. But we've had, since this was deployed, and no one even knew it was happening until after the fact, we sort of said, hey, that was huge, but no problems. And we wanted this to be generic, right? We wanted to reuse this for other types of punctual load. And it satisfies that criteria as well. We actually reused the whole pipeline for right-sizing our services, where our ambition is to get things as kind of right-sized as they can be. Ultimately, we're just putting an action on to say, go from this to that, so we can reuse it. So perfect, all good, we're done, except this is what our plan looks like, right? So on this day, we were going to add 1,664 cores, and we were going to do that to 259. A lot of work to do, and we've got to make sure we do this safely, especially because we're going to be adding like 1,664 cores, which could be like more than we're currently using. So remember I said before that when we schedule a pod in Kubernetes, it doesn't just appear immediately and start serving traffic. First of all, it goes into a pending state, then it schedules, we find somewhere to put it, we might add nodes or something. Eventually it ends up running and serving traffic. this queue you can see here of like unhappy looking pending pods is really important, because what we don't want to do is queue up 1,000 pods and then there's some incident and we need to roll something back, and guess what? The service that wants to roll back has got to wait for 1,600 other things to happen first. That would be terrible, right? We do not want to do that. So we had to add some controls to help us safely scale up. And those controls, we call them levers, they look like this. So first of all, we added a pending pod limit, which is the max number of pending pods that we'll allow. So when a scaling action is actioned, we'll say, I'm going to add 80 pods. How many are currently pending? And if the answer to that is more than we're comfortable with, we just back off. We say, hey, I've got 4 hours to complete doing this. Whatever else is going on is more important than me. I'm just going to wait. We can tune these live while the thing is running as well. We also added a max number of pods to add. So if a service wants to go from 5 pods to 100, we don't let it do that and add 95 pods in one go. We add 20 and re-queue that request, and it comes around again and again and again. We can also tune the consumption speed. So because these are on a queue, we can say, do 4 of these a second or 10 a second, and we can tune that as well live. And we added a kill switch. So if all else fails, just stop trying to scale things. If we've got some bigger problem to deal with, we don't want the fact that we're trying to scale up for something 4 hours in the future to be a problem. And here's what that looks like. So these graphs, the top one shows the green line coming down is like a burn down of us applying scaling actions. The CPU usage in cores in the middle, the yellow is what we're requesting, and the green is how much capacity we've actually got. And the blue ones in the middle are called over-provisioning pods. These are a bunch of pods that have got like a very, very low priority. So the moment anything wants to schedule, they will say, hey, I give up, you can take my space. And when that number of pods goes below a certain threshold, we will add more nodes to the cluster. So in this way, you can see that as we start adding more nodes, the over-provisioning pod shrinks, and eventually we start increasing the cluster size as well. And the bottom graph shows our pending pod count. You can see at about 12:30, there's a spike of pending pods, and that correlates on the top graph to a plateau. And that's as I described, where we saw there was a lot of things pending. We said, I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to wait till that goes away before I carry on. This is all automated, so we've got a high degree of security and safety in kind of achieving the scale up. And this is what it looks like over time. Again, the yellow is how much we're using, and the green is how much we're requesting. You can see that we burst up for our get paid early traffic, and everything's fine. In this middle one, this guy, the yellow spike here, would have been above what we had available. But because we boosted up to support it, it was fine. And you can also see from this where weekends are. So Thursdays are when most people get backs payments early, and Saturday and Sunday, no one really gets them. And you should be able to see that pattern. So this was our total cores used before we did this piece of work. And here it is after we did this piece of work. So much, much better. We're now using half of what we're paying for. And crucially, we're shrinking down overnight to use even less. And we could get that even lower if we wanted to kind of go even closer to the wire. But you see here we're using 6,000 before, now we use 4,000 at most. And that's it, that's the end of my talk. Thank you very much. And I have to say we're hiring as well. So if you like solving problems like this, we're hiring, and add me on LinkedIn. Cool, thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you very much. We've got time. Would you be okay to answer a few questions?
Oh, yeah,
you
sure.
keep your clicky on.
Okay.
You might have to repeat the question for the live stream.
Okay.
It's very awkward. So has anyone got any questions for Joe?
When do we get 1,000 pounds?
Hello.
How long ago was it that you undertook this project? Because I can see based on those graphs that you've got a lot of time that you could be saving there. But I'm assuming you're doing it from a security perspective to ensure you've got enough time to scale up, actually scale up given that time. But if this project was a success, surely you could bring that narrower.
Yeah, so this is one of the kind of balancing acts we've got where we start at 12 p.m. doing the scale up, That gives us 4 hours headroom to actually get scaled up and ready. It does mean that we're over-provisioned for longer than we need to be, but we've reduced that to a 4-hour window versus a always window. And the real thing that we care about a lot there is, if this goes wrong, we want to have enough time for humans to intervene, figure out what's broken, fix it, get scaled up, and be ready for that 4 p.m. peak. 4 hours is, we're kind of comfortable with that. We never really get close to the wire, but we'd rather spend a little bit more over that 4 hours than try to do it in 2 hours and potentially have like an incident where people are, trying to use their bank weren't scaled enough. So yeah, that's why I mentioned at the beginning, we have to make sure our customers can rely on us. So we kind of take that hit, and it's still much, much better than it was.
Cool, thanks.
Cool, thanks, Joe. Any more questions? Okay.
I didn't repeat the question. The question was, everyone knows from the context, right?
Thanks, Joe.
You're entirely in AWS.
Yes.
What's the internal thinking about going to another cloud or making your own data center outside, just in case someone fudges up on a
Sure. So we have our own data center for the MasterCard processors and things and stuff the question was, are we just only on AWS? Is that a risk? Yeah. So we have our own data center where we host MasterCard processors and things that you have to run on-prem, but we haven't had any issues with being kind of wholly on AWS. And I'm not,
still simple question. You're a bank, so I can ask financial questions. What's your monthly bill, and how does that break down per customer? On holiday, so the rest of the year, I'm worth nothing to you, so...
No. Ask someone else. I don't. To me, you're priceless.
Brilliant. Taking it personal on here.
Another question on AWS. Have you ever had to work with them in letting them know that you're suddenly going to grab 2,000 cores, or is that slow ramp up enough that they're not being impacted or they haven't caused you any grief or anything like that?
Yeah, so the question was, do we have to tell AWS that we're going to do this big scale up? No, we've never had to. We've moved from our self-managed Kubernetes to AWS EKS, and it can soak up the kind of increment that we're doing with no problem.
Bryson, still a question? Okay.
Thanks, Joe. I wanted to ask, how do you balance the amount of resources you need to provision with what you actually use? And I was really surprised at the graph at the end there, with how much over-provisioning you're still doing. So what's up with that balancing act there?
So the question is, why do we still have over-provisioning at the end despite this? I guess it's really so the services that we're making that decision based on what we think they're going to need. But in the background, there's a bunch of services that aren't involved in Get Paid Early, that perhaps they do some spikes of work and they're kind of scaled up to a higher degree of trade-offs of that, right? So if you scale everything right down to just where it needs of pods that we're using is related to consuming from a queue. So the more pods you've got, the more work you can consume off, because each pod can do that. So there are these kind of subtle interplays between the number of services running, the resources you're asking for, and the downsides to bringing that as close to the bone as you can. And then multiply that by 2,500. That's the answer.
No. Okay, we'll take that as a no. Sorry, live streamers. If there's any that come through, then we can forward them on to Joe. Joe will be happy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. I'm just going to hold it here because I can't be bothered. Jayne, so we're going to move on really quickly to the next talk. Obviously, we've got a break. So, who is head of Okay, talk amongst yourselves, tell some jokes, sing a song. There you go, Jayne. One on each.
Sing a song.
I'll sing a song.
It's okay.
Awesome.
Okay, can we hear me okay? Oh yes, I can hear myself. And I think I might stand still at risk of getting caught up in cables. Yeah, I think that might be safer. Hi everyone. Hi, I'm really excited to be here at Fusion today. I am Jayne and I'm going to be talking to you about marketing for software startups. Now, I know that many of you have probably got ideas about starting your own software businesses. And some of you might even have side hustles already, or perhaps you've already taken the plunge. Whichever one it is, I'm going to give you some basics of marketing today to help you kind of get a head start on selling your products and services. So before I get right into it, a little bit about me and what am I doing here today. So I've been working in marketing for some 20-ish years, which I find hard to believe. And I've worked for quite a varied set of organisations, but what they all have in common is purpose. A bit like that video we saw at the beginning. So when I'm looking for something to give my energies and efforts to, I look for businesses that are going to make a difference in the world, and that's my why. And you're going to hear about the why in this session. So most recently, that's been with health tech organisations. I've been doing that for about 5 years. I'm currently at Nurse Buddy, and they make home care software. So that's software that carers use when they go out to people's homes to look after them, as a way of making sure they can continue to live well and independently, rather than, say, go into hospital or into a care home, a really important cause. And before that, I worked in a marketing agency and was lucky enough to both to live and work in both Chile and Australia, which somewhat explains the pictures that you can now see. And you can also see the capsule that rescued the Chilean miners, if you remember that, from 2010. That was quite an amazing time to be there. And when I'm not at work, I have a little side hustle of my own, which is designing embroidery kits. And I have a little shop on Folksy, if that's your thing. I'm sure it will be someone's out there. So, in today's session, I'm going to cover 3 things. I'm going to talk about the why and how to find yours. I'm going to talk about an inbound approach to marketing and how that will attract people to your software businesses, and then give you some content ideas that's going to make people want you. And I hope that you'll go home with some really practical tips that you can put in place right away if you want to. So, first of all, finding your why. So, who in the room has heard of Simon Sinek? Okay, wonderful, an absolute guru to me. He's a writer and inspirational speaker, talks about business leadership and marketing, and he wrote a book called Start With Why, and it included this theory called the Golden Circle, which is what's up there on the slide. And it's a really powerful idea, and it demonstrates how some of the leaders who've had the most influence in the world, like Martin Luther King or Steve Jobs, they all think, act and communicate in the same way. And it's totally different to what everyone else does. It's coming from their why. So if we look at the Golden Circle, pretty much every organisation in the world fits into the what category. They understand what they do. They know what products or services they sell, at least you would hope that they do. Some understand how, so how they do it, what sets them apart from their competition or the things that makes them special. But very few organisations really understand their why. Very few know what their purpose is or their cause. And it's not what they're out to make. It's not about money, it's about the difference they want to make in the world. And that's often rooted in some kind of emotion. So I put up here a couple of great examples of organisations that know their why. I'd be remiss if I didn't put Nurse Buddy up there, but wonderfully I've included Monzo as well. Thank you for that. And it's Monzo I'm going to talk about because lots of you put your hands up before. So Monzo have created a real emotional bond with their customers through a really deep understanding of what they want to do. So if we were to take Signlex Golden Circle, Monzo go from their what, we make a banking app, to their how, it's got tons of cool features like pots and a hot coral card, right? To their why, we want to make banking better for everyone. Can you hear the difference? So the reason why the why is important is it because it gives your customers a reason to love you and get on board with what you do. And it shapes everything that you do as a result. So that's everything from the features that the app has, in Monzo's case, to the language that they use for their terms and conditions. I hope I got that right. Wonderful. So how do you find your why? Well, to do that, there's two questions I want you to ask yourselves. One's about the future and one's about the past. I want you to think about what you're working on, what your software business is about, and zoom forward 10, 25, maybe even 50 years. How does the world look different because of the work that you've been doing? That's probably your why. And then I want you to think about why you started in the first place. Write down or think about all of the reasons why you began. What were you hoping to achieve? And if you can, try and push through your mind going blank a couple of times. When you reflect on your list, has a theme emerged? Is there something emotional in there? And if there is, then that's probably your why. So I'll leave you to do that exercise. And what we'll move on to then is how to attract your customers. And I didn't bring my water with me. Could I have mine? Thank you. Cheers. So I'm going to talk about how to bring your customers, thank you, towards you once you know your why and who you want to reach. So that's all about an inbound approach to marketing. So we're going to get a little bit marketing technical here. But really, the inbound approach is actually just about being helpful. And it's about being present where your customers are already hanging out. So it's all about being there when they need something, rather than like a typical sales approach of being pushy and cold calling and interrupting people. And inbound is based on this flywheel, which I've nicked from HubSpot, and you'll hear about HubSpot later, my favourite tool in the world. So the flywheel is about attracting, engaging, and delighting people. So your prospects become customers because you've helped them, and they like what you do, and they trust you. And then your customers go on to become promoters because, again, you've helped them, they love what you do, they want to be loyal to you. And all of that helps you grow, which sounds pretty simple, really, doesn't it? And if we talk about Monzo again, they did this really well. You know, lots of you are customers. And so what they set out to do in trying to disrupt the banking market rather through software, they decided to attract engineers. I'm sure many of you played with Monzo Labs, where you got to try out new features, test new things. You know, it's a bit of an engineer's dream, I imagine. Golden tickets. So that early adopters would invite all of their friends to join. I know that I did that. I received them and I gave them out quite liberally. So what you need to do is really to think like Monzo and think about who you're trying to reach with your software business. What is it that those people need and what problems could you solve for them? And think about that at each of the 3 stages of the buying journey, which I'm going to talk about. So the first stage is awareness, which is when a customer realises they have a problem, but they don't really know how to solve it yet. And if we take my organisation, Nurse Buddy, so what they need to do is be able to tell carers what to do when they go out to people's houses and check that they've done it okay. And typically they're trying to do that more reliably and efficiently and often quickly, because there's things that can go wrong and the stakes are really high and there's lots of moving parts. So they might do some research and realise that technology could be a way of solving this problem for them. That then takes them across to the collaboration. The customer is looking at different ways to use technology to solve that problem. So they, a potential Nursery customer might find out they could put cameras in people's homes, but that feels a bit intrusive. Or they might find out they could use robots, but that feels a bit impersonal and uncaring. So they settle on using a mobile app to give real-time information sharing between the carer and the people managing the service. So then that will take them down available and making a purchase. So what you need to do as a software business, and this is a hugely successful way of thinking about it, is how to be helpful at every stage of that journey. What can you put out there that's going to help your potential customers as they're going through this process? So at that awareness stage, talk very broadly about the problem you can solve, and the problems that software like yours could solve. Don't only talk about yourself, talk very broadly. So you might do a guest blog, you might rock up on a podcast, you might do something like this. Then at the consideration stage, start sharing the benefits specifically of your software. Your website is really well optimized for the kind of searches people are doing. You might write an ebook or a white paper, you might do a feature comparison. And then at the decision stage, you want to be showing evidence of how you're the best solution for the job. So think about demos, free trials, customer testimonials and reviews. And none of this needs to be particularly pushy, and a lot of the time it might not even be about your business. The aim is really to be there when someone needs you, even if they don't know it yet. So with all of that in mind, for my final section, I just wanted to share a few content ideas and a bit of a plan that could get you up and running with marketing your software business. And it looks a bit like this, which if I'm honest is kind of the contents of my brain. So I'll talk you through this. My biggest recommendation for you is to produce some kind of gated content and have that in the centre of all of your efforts. And I know you'll have seen these. What I'm talking about is an ebook or a white paper or a quiz, something that's behind a form and is valuable enough that your potential customers are going to give their email address away for it, because that's the most effective way of building a list of people to market to and to get your name out there. So think about what you could write about or produce. Don't worry too much if you're not too great at writing or designing. There's lots of freelancers who can help with that. Have a look at Fiverr or people per hour. Then once you've got your piece of gated content, you want to make that work really, really hard for you. So obviously share it on your social channels, but don't just share it once, share it multiple times, and don't just share a link. See if you can extract snippets, an infographic, and play with the different formats you've got, like carousels and video. You know, do a TikTok dance if it's appropriate for your audience. Why not? If you can, get some collaborators involved. Now that will give you credibility, but also they're really invested in sharing it on your behalf because it gets their name out there too. So that's a really good idea to apply to this kind of thing. And then make sure you've got something like a blog or on your website that's kind of teasing that gated content. So it's targeting searches people might be doing to find you. And then there's a call to action in there that will send people across to download it. So that might be. And then finally, if you have got a bit of budget to put behind your marketing, social advertising can be really, really effective. So if you're trying to reach other businesses, I would recommend using LinkedIn because you can target industries, interest groups and job titles. And if you're going for consumers, then I'd use Meta, so Facebook and Instagram. And you can reach a really well-targeted niche audience for about £200. So it's well worth a go. And both of those platforms have lead gen forms built in them as well. So if you haven't got a website up and running or something like that, you can just crack on and get going. So just before I finish, there's a lot to marketing, so I wanted just to share with you some of my favourite free tools that can get you up and running really quickly so you can start seeing some results. On the production side, you've got Grammarly. It's a writing and editing tool, but it will give you tone of voice suggestions, phrasing, so it can really help you improve your writing skills and be able to write for different platforms. Canva, great for design. There's thousands of templates. This is a Canva presentation today. It'll help you design everything from social to ebooks to video, and then Unsplash for royalty-free images. On strategy, I absolutely love Answer the Public. It will give you loads of questions around a particular topic that people are searching for on Google. Great for blog ideas. Google tools available to you if you get into your website and SEO. And then on publishing, you've probably heard of Linktree, which is great for curating links. So again, if you haven't got a website up and running, you can just gather everything together there and share it. Use loads on Instagram. Later's a social publishing tool, but there are many more. I'd suggest trying them and finding your favourite. And then finally, HubSpot, which I mentioned, as I said, but its free version would give you really good foundations for marketing. It'll help you build completely GDPR compliant. So it's a really good place to start. And if you get really into marketing, it has loads and loads of free resources too. So I'll leave you with my final thoughts. Firstly, know your why and know the difference that you're going to make in the world. Secondly, understand your customers and the problems that you can solve for them. And then finally, show your value. What piece of unique content could you create that will tell people what you do, how you do it, and most importantly, why? And thanks for listening.
Yeah, yay! Thanks, Jayne. That was really, really good. I learnt so that was very useful for me in a very selfish way, but I organised the meetups, that's okay. All the free tools were great. What we'll do is we'll put that on our Twitter account, so if anyone is kicking off a side hustle, freebies are obviously brilliant, so thank you for those recommendations.
No, you're welcome.
We're just going to see if anyone's got any questions for Jayne at all. Yeah.
Hello.
You mentioned quite a few different techniques on strategies that are good for software marketing. I just wondered if you had any thoughts on common knowledge that should be avoided.
Was that common pitfalls or, yeah? I would say don't be too pushy. As I talked about the inbound methodology, and I would absolutely fall back on that right away. Try and be helpful, try and be where your customers are and try and be what they need rather than pushing your agenda. And then obviously I did talk about GDPR, really important thing with marketing. Make sure you understand it, and if you can, use a tool that's going to help you do that, like HubSpot. There are others, I don't get paid by them. But be mindful of that. But I'm talking to a room that I'm sure understands the importance of data anyway, so that won't come as a surprise.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any more questions for Jayne? Oh, that's great. Right, no.
Thank you very much for that really good talk. You said that you had gotten into kind of the more, I guess, like tech-oriented companies 5 years back. Did you find that there was much of a variation between the stuff that you were doing before for more general interest companies, maybe like people who are physically manufacturing stuff, versus purely a software-oriented business, at least from a marketing perspective?
Yeah, that's a really good question, actually. So that's the differences I've seen between a software business and other businesses that I've worked for. Yeah, it's a really curious one because I kind of found software by accident, but I think it's probably my home. And I was sort of reluctant because I'd worked for kind of quite obviously purposeful organisations, charities and things. And I wasn't sure software would do that. I was completely wrong. There's a cause at the end of it. So that was very interesting in how I could still talk to audiences in a similar way. So in that way, it was actually quite similar territory. But I guess the key difference, though, was being very technical in its subject matter. So obviously there's lots I need to learn and lots I need to understand. So it's quite interesting when I come to a technical place like this and realise how much I have picked up. So that was definitely a learning curve for me. I hope that answers your question.
Ollie.
Start and have your first sort of big marketing drive, what would be a sensible starting budget once you sort of used your 200 quid on some meta, obviously 200 quid in sort of the long term isn't going to go that far. What would your sort of starting ideal budget be?
Yeah, that's a really good question about what your starting budget would be as a startup. I mean, I would always recommend to start small and test. And again, that's probably familiar territory for this room. So I wouldn't pour lots of money into digital advertising because you can just burn through it. So I'd start through, test, see how it goes. If you're then looking to spend money elsewhere, you know, you might want to then get on some specialist skills like preparing the ebook for you. And I would argue that that's probably a better use of resources than kind of splashing on a big ad spend. So I'd really start small.
Thanks, Ollie. Got a question, Bruce?
Hiya. Yeah, I love the Signet book, and it saved my bacon when I accidentally fell into marketing about 10 years ago. But given that you're a marketing professional, something that's always made me question is the start with why applicable, do you think, generally across sectors? So, for example, if I walk into Sainsbury's and look at toothpaste, there's 28 billion different kinds of toothpaste. I've really got no idea of the why of Aquafresh versus any other brand, and they seem, you know, I choose the cheapest or the ones that my kids like the taste better of. So is the start with why I think generally applicable, or is it only specifically about certain types of premium product, in your opinion?
Yeah, so is the start with why generally applicable? It does lend itself very well to premium products because it gives you a point of differentiation. And for something like software, which can be expensive, and often it, you know, perhaps it can be difficult to choose between, it's a really good differentiator. You know, I would argue that all customers could learn, all companies rather, could learn from start with why and understanding their purpose and what difference they're making. I think that's a good thing to think about. But it would definitely lend itself to something more premium. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, thanks, Bruce. Any more questions? Awesome. Thanks, Jayne.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, so we're going to take a break. 15 minutes. We've stocked up on the beers. Didn't realise that we didn't have any left. Apologies. Stocked up on soft drinks as well, so you don't have to pretend to like non-alcoholic Prosecco. So 15 minutes, do your beers, toilet, don't forget we've got a terrace and a boardroom breakout space if you get to cramped the lounge. So what time are we on? So 8:30? Hello.
Sorry, I thought there was deeper requirements. I thought there was deeper meaning to the. Hello, how's it going? James? Do you mind plugging yourself in and having a listen? Because I'm saying some very awkward things on the internet, and I have changed how we're audio interfacing into this. So maybe I am talking to YouTube right now. Hi YouTube, feel free to say in the chat if the audio is any better than previously.
Hey YouTube, what's up? Please remember to like and subscribe.
Did that laugh just deafen you, YouTube? Did that laugh?
Oh, that sounds really good.
Is that better? Yeah, the external audio interface. Okay, it's that capture card's just got an awful thing on it, and I'm just gonna. Bingo.
Welcome back to Fusion. Welcome back. For security reasons, Hannah unfortunately is unable to introduce our next guest.
So unfortunately, you all know our next guest. She has three horrendous cats.
I do.
She's here to talk to you about interesting and exciting things. I've always had a good word for Jess. Unfortunately, the code of conduct prevents me from repeating it here.
So please put your hands together. Jess Rose.
Thank you so much. Oh. Everything's fine. Everything's going to be fine. Which has nothing to do with my talk. Often technical things will go wrong. That's also fine. So hello, my name is Jessica Rose, and I'm going to be talking to you about when language on the web doesn't quite work, and when language in digital things. You may have noticed a different title on the web page. I was going for an autocorrect joke because sometimes when we try and teach computers how actual people speak, the whole thing just doesn't ducking work. Oh, as flat as my jokes. I do work with the Mozilla Foundation, which, see, I love chaos. I knew giving out squeaky ducks was the way to go. And we got a fantastic talk about looking at the whys your organization exists or makes stuff. And we've got a reasonably narrow remit written down that becomes terrifyingly wide when you look at the actual internet. We've set out to ensure that the internet remains a public resource that is open and accessible to us all. And that's most often associated with the web. So, Mozilla does web stuff, but we didn't really say web, we said the internet here. And that gets bigger and messier and more exciting as we examine new technologies and say, hey, is this us? Do we care about us? You all, unless something has gone very, very wrong, are watching this in 2023. And you're probably already aware that we live in interesting times. And this is true for voice technology as well, because speech tools are kind of ubiquitous these days. Who here has some kind of voice assistant on your phone or devices? Who here, like me, has turned that off and hopes that actually works? Yeah, enjoy a 3 a.m. fear, it's mine. And on one side, we're seeing these speech tools really enter public use in a very, very forceful way at the exact same time that AI has become almost omnipresent in news, in your non-technical boss's glimmer in their eye, in the hype cycle. AI is really, really loud right now, and this is kind of a dangerous place to be. We've seen text on the internet not be distributed equally. So you say, hey, we often hear people talk about the next billion users on the web. These are folks who are joining the web for the first time, and they're joining on an unequal place. They're joining on usually second-hand devices that are mobile only. They're generally joining on insecure or poorly scaled infrastructure, so maybe connectivity is much more expensive. But something I'm interested in text, which becomes really dangerous as we look at speech, is when we look at the next billion users, the users who are coming online for the first time, usually English isn't their first language, whereas the dominant language of the web, and if we're not careful, the dominant language of speech, has been primarily English. The really cool thing about speech technology, though, is that it always works every time.
if you sound exactly like me. Speech technology is faultless. It is perfect if your name is Kevin, if you're 23, and you live in San Francisco. If you're not Kevin, this can be a huge problem. And I'm going to go ahead and bring us, assuming that technology agrees with me, I'm going to bring a slightly more regionalized version of this problem. Oh, computers. All right, Scottish people are here. Oh, good, I got a separate task for those of you who are, that's nefarious, isn't it? Be like, who's Scottish? I won't do the whole thing. It's tempting.
What's the buttons? I don't know, they install voice recognition technology in us lift ahead of the minutes. Voice recognition technology in a lift in Scotland. Tried voice recognition technology? No, we don't do Scottish accents. 11.
Could you please repeat that?
The worst, the worst. It goes on like that for a while. They're significantly more clever than I would be, and they really make my point better than I do, so we'll skip it, if this is possible. Oh, everything's wrong. Nothing will ever be okay again. I used to be a teacher, so as long as you say the worst things in your heart in that voice, it generally turns out okay. Why? For those of you who are perhaps my age, this is not going to be a digression into the sounds your knees make. Instead, do y'all know they just kept making Pokemon? I love how like two of you were like, yeah, and everybody else was like, oh. So they kept making Pokemon this whole time. And this one is my favorite. He is a bag of trash. No, very extremely literally. Has anybody heard of the garbage in, garbage out axiom for AI? Yeah, a couple of folks. And this is, at least in my heart, this is not true to canon. I'm almost sure that Pokemon has canon. No one talked to me about what the canon is after the pub. I don't know because I don't need to know. But in my heart, this is the AI Pokemon, Trubbish. If you're wondering why a trash bag Pokemon exists, this is a fantastic opportunity to, hello Nintendo, please don't sue me. I did not create any Pokemon and I'm not claiming to. You need to take this directly up with Nintendo. I'm reasonably sure they've got a stock answer. But the deal with Pokemon are, you take them out into the world because that's the deal, and they become ever more themselves throughout evolutions. My favorite little AI Pokemon starts out as trash. He gets to go about his trashy business, and then when he grows up, he's even more trash. This is not just about how folks in my family grew up. This is also the garbage in, garbage out axiom. So you get a data set, and it's not that it's trash, it's that it's limited. Right now, folks who are building speech AI and building speech data sets tend to be pulling in data, tend to be creating data that sounds like them. If you're a bunch of 20-something engineers working in the Bay Area and you need some voice clips, you can pass a mic around. You'll get enough data to pass your tests as long as your tests are other folks who sound exactly like you, which is entirely possible to do. And you say, Jess, because for the purposes of this talk, I've condensed you all into one rhetorical device, much like AI would compress you against your will. You say, Jess, this is fine, I guess. Love the Pokemon, good call. But are voice assistants really this big of a deal? Is this that important when we look at the world around us? Is speech really enough of a big deal to interrupt my cupcakes? And this is my favorite example. And by favorite, I mean this is the most recent one that kept me awake at night. Speech isn't just us talking to our Apple devices or us talking to, is the Google one called Google? Siri and Alexa and it's not just voice assistants. We're using speech for incredibly high-risk environments. To give you a quick summary of this one, which is indeed terrifying, this is a specific asylum seeker who entered into a new country and gave 2 parallel reports on how they came to be in this country. They did a written report And they also gave an oral interview. That oral interview was automatically transcribed by machine translation. And when the officials taking a look at their documentations, when they had described in their written account coming into the country alone, whereas the transcription of their voice account talked about coming in with other people. Their asylum claim was denied, putting them in an incredibly difficult situation because the transcription technology, the speech to text as it were, because that's the process we're talking about here, didn't handle dairy very well. This isn't just in translation applications. We're talking about transcription in medical environments. We're talking about emergency services. This can be incredibly dangerous for folks whose language isn't English, but just like the Lyft example, this can be incredibly dangerous if your accent isn't Keith's accent. You say, okay, cool, Jess, because we're on a first name basis, because I've compressed you into a rhetorical device, very chill. You might say, oh, cool, so we're completely doomed. And I don't think I have the authority to say everything would be fine in a wide-scale way. There are big, scary things in the world and big, scary things in voice technology that I can't tell the future about. I love how that implies I can tell the future about some things. But there are things you can do. If garbage in, garbage out is the problem, we just need to. I kind of forgot I was in England for a second. For folks watching on the stream, it doesn't pick up the audio very well, but everybody yelled a variation, we need to put better data in. I live in Birmingham. I should have known better. This is on me. And naturally, I'm going to soft pitch you in the laziest way. What, hypothetically, if there was a free, high-quality, and linguistically diverse open source corpus? And the first thing I want to say is there are many corpora. So these are big vats. They're stored in hypothetical vats, as we describe this, of voice data that exist out there in the world. Many of them proprietary, so they're owned and you pay for them. But there are individual corpora that are incredibly good and open source and free. Because I'm on stage right now and it's embarrassing, I've completely forgot one of my favorite ones, which is a Finnish government process. Because Finnish is one of my favorite languages to listen to completely uncomprehendedly. So the Common Voice project's been around for a little while. This is our own, our being Mozilla's and yours, if you want it. Project looking at developing crowdsourced speech samples. So launched, you know what, this is a lot of detail and you all don't need any of this. The thing I think is important is we started with English. And this is exactly where almost all of the speech corpus starts with is, hey, let's start with English and expand. And expand usually turns into a to-do comment. Oh, we'll start in English, and then the next thing you know, we're definitely going to cover all the other languages. We did start in English, and then I think what's wild is the next year, we went multilingual with, and I have not been able to reverse engineer why. I would love to go back in time and read these conversations, but we expanded into German, Irish, Kinyarwanda, and Mongolian. And like, yeah, all of these are extremely cool languages. There doesn't seem to be a ton of 2019, we expanded into some more languages, got some more technical features. 2020, some global things happened. It's fine, everything was fine. And then there's some business stuff saying, hey, do you know what, it went, I've never been to a talk where somebody explained a company's org structure and I have never, ever, ever cared. I'm so sorry. This is the only time it's been relevant. Mozilla's got like a corporation and they've got a foundation. So the Common Voice used to hang out on, be owned by the corporation. And back in 2020, it came over to the foundation saying, hey, do you know what? We think that this belongs on the nonprofit side. I'm going to show you a process slide. And this is not, I'll screenshot this if y'all really need it. But this is just saying, these days, we do not choose which languages go on the platform. We've gotten to a point where we don't think we're the best stewards of deciding, oh, next we'll have Instead, this is community decided. If you all go on there and you find a language that you're interested in, or especially that you speak, that is not on our platform, send a language request. You can email commonvoice@mozilla.com. It will definitely end up in my inbox. And there's a process through which you can go ahead and start that language being collected. You say, okay, Jess, you know, even as a rhetorical device, this is a little bit hard to swallow. It sounds like you're kind of trying to hard sell me on using Common Voice. And the thing that I want to be absolutely crystal clear on is I absolutely am. And not in like a buy my thing kind of way. I would love for you to use Common Voice if you're doing speech technology with any other data sets you feel like it. One of the things I love best about this project is there's an expression, a couple of different free as in expressions for open source. And some people say free as in beer, like, hey, you can just have it, it's free. Some people say free as in puppy. Hey, you can use this, but you have to take care of it. This is free as in chaos. So the data set coming out of this is CC0 licensed. We do ask that you don't, part of the process is we ask that you don't identify any of the individual speakers. But we don't keep track of what you want it for. We don't keep track. We have no idea what you're going to use it for. Please use this for whatever you feel like. It can be commercial. It can be free. You can, please get weird in a creative and interesting way. Don't be weird about identifying it. Like, yeah, be chill weird, not weird weird. So he's, oh, okay, I'm sold because, again, you're temporarily a rhetorical device. I'm so sorry. Literally just go and download it. We do ask that you give us an email address. I'm not going to email you, hey, thanks. That's literally just so that if anybody asks that their information be deleted later on, we can email you and say, hey, sorry to bother you, because it'll be me writing the email. Could you delete these clips from your data? That's kind of it. But we had covered, started in 2017, 2018, we had 4 languages. How many do we have now? Oh, that was a non-rhetorical question. I should not have flattened y'all into rhetorical devices. The one thing I should have said is if you're on your phone now, if you're on your laptop now, chill, no judgment. I would not recommend trying to do this on the venue Wi-Fi. So we've got, we have 18,000 validated hours of speech running across 112 languages. I was so excited to go into this job because before moving into tech, I was a linguist, and I'm such a languages nerd because obviously this isn't being live streamed to the internet and no one will ever laugh at me. Every couple of weeks, I get to have a conversation with somebody who tells me a brand new language I've never heard of, and I have to hold my face in a still and polite, oh, I've definitely heard of this language before, fantastic, great, while quietly Wikipediaing it under my table. It is the most exciting part of my job. So the data set, you just get a huge, chaotic folder of data. You get, oh, this is old, it is way more than this, I'm so sorry. You just get a big dump of clips, and then some TSVs with additional information. So all voice contributions, whether or not our volunteers have checked them and said they were okay, are gonna be included in the data set. We'll also list which ones are validated, just to help you out. You say, oh, hey, this is fine, I guess. What if I'm not working with speech AI yet? Everything's fine. And for the purposes of this topic, everything's fine and everything's going to be fine. I don't work for Hugging Face. I don't take any money from Hugging Face. Y'all could hire me for some contract work if you feel like it. It's a conflict of interest. They can't. It's fine. But Hugging Face just launched a really fantastic AI audio course. If you're interested in taking this, it's free as well. And I'm taking it at the same time as you. I'm a whole 2 weeks ahead, which makes me officially an expert in tech terms. So obviously, if you have any Common Voice questions, yeah. If you have any questions about this course, as long as it's 2 weeks behind me, it'll be fine. And this would be the best rhetorical question to get after this talk. If somebody came up and said, Jess, you know what? I'm already using Common Voice in my work, or I'm already using Common Voice in my side projects. What do you want from me? Weird pub conversation though. Obviously, fantastic. One of the big challenges, and one of the big weird challenges of working on this project is it's CC0. We have literally no idea what people are making, which is a joy, but oh no, it being CC0 means if you've made something really cool, we have no idea what you've made. If you're working on something and you want to come tell me about, hey, I'm working in healthcare and I'm doing this thing, or hey, I'm working in finance and this doesn't work, it would be incredible to help further refine how we collect data and how we validate it. You say, okay, maybe I don't really care about using this. Maybe I'm going to withstand all the AI hype. Maybe I'd like to contribute. Fabulous, low key. One of our big things at Mozilla is we don't want to take more information than we need to. You've got the option to log in, like create an account and log in. You at no time need to. If you come to commonvoice.com, hello, and push this button, so we're not logged in. Oh, how would we say when Wuba? The seat of the county locates at the Wanuba town. Huh. That's technically correct as the book goes, but it's a weird sentence in isolation. So genuinely, you just come to the... Oh, and like that will happen a lot. A lot of the sentences, like just by themselves, we're like, pardon? We've got a skip button. You gonna say something wild for the next one? No. Ooh, also, ooh. Is that a real? No, I'm out. So it's genuinely just come to commonvoice.mozilla.com and push the button. I do have a nefarious thing at the end. If you're a little shy, you say, hey, you know what? I don't actually need to speak. I can just chill out, but I would like to hear some of the wild sentences people are recording. You'd be like, I'd like to hear more about this Mr. Hyde fellow. You can go ahead and validate clips and just listen to people with melodious voices pop along in your language of choice. And I've talked to a lot of language learners who really like to do this for their second language of choice. If you want to talk to other people but not talk to a computer, there's a discourse, a matrix chat. We hang out on GitHub. And if you're like very, very intense about translation, if you are also very, very intense about translation, then please come talk to me afterwards. There's also a translation platform called Pontoon. The big thing I really want to sell is that voice-enabled technology, whether or not it is the future, isn't the future, we wind up doing a brand new thing that I've never heard of yet, is that it isn't just a luxury, if I can sell you on one thing, that our ability to talk to computers, talk to machines, is one of the lowest barriers to entry for ways to communicate with technology. You don't need to be literate. You don't need to have a device that has inputs. You just need to have a voice. And being able to do this effectively shouldn't be a luxury. Yes. Yeah, obviously. I'm a ridiculously big fan of Birmingham. It is my favorite city. I will lovingly fuss out anybody who has anything bad to say about it. I am extremely weird about how much I like Birmingham. And one of the things we've started collecting in the past little while is voluntarily, you don't have to. Oh, you're laughing because you know where this is going. I know. The people who made the way sound when the Scottish clip came on, I got something for y'all as well. We also allow people to voluntarily connect, tag their data with their own accents. And I really love this because I love chaos. So if you click this, you do get a drop down with some of our most common accents for that language. But if you push any of the buttons, you also get a blank text field. So we've seen people describe their accents in all sorts of weird and cool ways. I've been pretty clear and pretty upfront that I'm very annoying about how much I like Birmingham. It's a very good city. Has anybody been to the Penn Museum? Yeah. If y'all haven't been, they let you like play with dangerous classical, retro, Victorian. It's not actually going to be that big or in pink if you use the text box. And I want to be really careful. I'm not actually suggesting you poison the data by having a whole bunch of people say cool Brummie accent. But because this is my adopted city and my favorite home, it would be really, really cool if we had really great accents representation across Birmingham accents and then Black Country accents, our neighbors right next door. The cool project I've got for the rest of the year is how do I say this in a way that doesn't sound creepy? I have been asked, collect sounds bad. It's genuinely not creepy. It's just I've been asked if I can help facilitate. So I'm going to be spending the next 6 months or so trying to get other regional accents from across Europe. So I'm going to be focusing on Scottish accents, Welsh, and Irish accents in English. I'm going to be really careful. Our Scottish Gaelic, our Welsh, and our Irish language communities are doing fantastic right now. I'm in no way trying to muscle in on their territory, especially not Welsh. Love y'all. Our Welsh community is really, really intense. They're fantastic. We've got a couple of language communities where when they run campaigns, they tend to break stuff on the platform in the best possible way, which would be our Catalan friends. And then the Welsh are right behind them. So give us a heads up in advance. Say, hey, we're going to be doing something on national radio. And we all go to our computers to have a little cry, a loving cry. But if anybody does have a cool accent, Brummie or otherwise, and you want to show it off, we're especially excited to invite you. Thank you so much. Hello.
I'm not Bruce. Thanks, Jess. So any questions for Jess?
Oh, that was very sudden. That was very confident. Oh, can you? I think I could take 3 questions. Can y'all chuck a duck at the questioner lovingly and softly?
Sure. Yeah, so I guess I'm going to kind of ask 2 questions.
Yeah.
But, so one thing you said it kind of came up as you're asking it, but when you're saying that you annotate the data with accents, so cool Brummie accent, which is a bit redundant because we're all cool. But, so...
Wait, did you say they're all cool or they're not cool?
Cool.
Okay.
No, so...
You see me up here like... Whoa.
Yeah, no, so one thing was, is there any intent to kind of capture or annotate information about, say, ESL or second languages? So is there an intent to capture French speakers who've learned English or vice versa, that kind of stuff? Second of all, you said it's intended to be a high quality data set. Is there any intent on kind of not just capturing people who are getting emails, kind of like you say in cases where infrastructure or hardware isn't good enough to capture? Is there an intent on capturing 24 kilobyte per second very bad samples, or is that kind of beyond the scope of it? Is the intent that it is clear as hell?
Cool. Remind me which is which as I try and keep 2 questions in my head at the same time. So the first one is, first, very, very clear statement that all Brummie accents are cool, which is technically correct and really emotionally correct, so both kinds are correct. What kinds of other data we're collecting around demographics? So if you create a profile, you do have the ability to say things like your gender, your age, but really I'm a native French speaker of English. We would usually collect in the optional accent data, yeah. Questions around sound quality. So this question was really cool, is when we think about collecting this data, are we also thinking about collecting data that we would consider lower quality to get a more realistic look at what people sound like in different environments? And this is a cool question because this is something we hear a lot from folks who use the data set in field humanitarian contexts, in medical contexts where you're going to get a lot of fans and beeping and, I was about to say screaming, but hopefully not that. So at the moment, we've really optimized for keeping the platform as lightweight as possible and making the data as lightweight as possible. So we're only really collecting 10-second clips, aiming for higher quality. And we're finding that users, dataset consumers who need, users? Nerds who love the dataset, are getting a lot of benefit often from applying filters over that. So there are questions internally about when and how are we looking, like what is high quality? Do you need a silent room? And a lot of it comes down to the judgment of validators. I would probably say no on a silent room, but the quality of beeping car horns in the background is often something you can get through filtering.
Cool, okay, thank you very much. We have, I think we've only got time for one more question.
Maybe two?
So it's like a guess here. How long have we got? What time are we on? Any idea? Yeah, okay, cool. One more question, which is very cool. So sorry. Okay, let's go. Eye to eye, I feel like if I walk past you, it's going to be an issue. It's like
I can go super fast.
That's really kind. I feel so, oh my God, no, you're used to it. Oh my God.
Also, I sit next to you, so you could just be like, Jazz.
Just go, Brian.
Hello. Just out of curiosity, you mentioned how fascinated you are when you meet somebody who speaks a language you never heard of. This is all very crowdsourced.
Please don't make me admit to the languages I've never heard of. Please, 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 please. Cool.
Let's say I'm a speaker of a language. I live in the Amazon, and there's 140 people that speak this language. We have no access to technology, but somehow I'm contributing to this. Who validates that?
So.
And secondly, is there any preservation going on? Are you doing something preservative here
So hang on, I'm going to do, for folks on the stream, hello loves. So two questions is, one's hypothetical, and so the first one is, are we doing language preservation work? And yes, it's some of the most exciting language we work with. We've just got a couple of requests from really specific communities looking around language preservation. We work really closely with folks who speak minority languages in countries that don't use them as national languages. One of our biggest remits is looking at endangered languages to say, hey, where are languages being pushed out? Your hypothetical question is going to get into standards and politics really quickly, so definitely come get me at the pub because I've got like some off-air opinions. We, as individuals on the team, would love to onboard all of these kinds of languages, but one thing we're asking for right now in effort to taxonomize, in order to sort and process these, is an ISO code. And the process of having your language recognized, if you don't currently have an ISO, I'm not going to guess the number, there's 60 in there somewhere. If you don't currently have a language ISO code, the process to get that done is actually reasonably challenging. So it's an extended process. It involves working with ISO partners and third parties. And I might lovingly say it's often a challenge that is not as fair to, like if you're a reasonably well-represented country, or if you're a nationwide language, if you're a reasonably well-represented language, it's significantly easier and less effort. So these questions around where and how do we handle, where and how can we handle? We're also a nonprofit, and our team is way smaller than you would think for so much being built on it. But where and how can we support languages as they get onto the ISO standard has been where we've been so far. I have as annoying as I am about Birmingham, language standardization and when they get codes and variants, how we handle variants, I also care a lot about. So I'm going to leave so y'all can not hear about it for the next 3 hours.
Thank you, Jess. So then there was a few more questions for Jess. Jess, you going for a beer after? No?
You said that we were going to the Craven.
We're going for a beer after. Jess will be there. I'm sure she will. So if you've got any questions. Infobip have literally been coming everywhere, so we've been following their travels on Twitter, which has been amazing to see, and now finally we have Mike Ellsmore back in the UK, which is just delightful. We love seeing your happy, enthusiastic face every time at Fusion. So, last speaker is Mike Ellsmore.
All right, before I start, I've got to ask, when has anybody ever seen me happy at this event? Just checking. I'm usually going, ah! Ah! Surprisingly, I can do weird noises on command. Okay, so I realize I am the one thing between you and getting the hell out of here because it's a little warm and there is beer at the end that isn't Peroni. So let's get the show on the road. So for those of you who are, and that's when my clicker doesn't work because, let's go. Hi, I'm Mike Ellsmore. I'm from Infobip. I'm wearing the t-shirt that represents it. Who here has stolen one of the duck stickers? Awesome. So who here has heard of Infobip beforehand? That's a nice, ouch. I feel, ouch. I shall say this now, there is an open heckle policy, just don't expect me to be happy about it afterwards. So yeah, you can find me pretty much everywhere on the internet as UK You're welcome to email me, and I am stupid and I decided to create a NPM library with all my contact details because who wants to create a contact card? So, right, oh God, the clicker's not working. Screw this. There we go. So, Infobip. Some of you have heard of us. For those of you who haven't, we are a CPaaS platform. What that means is we are a communications platform. We send SMS, WhatsApp. I've just lost my microphone. It's fine, it's fine. I can do it like this, as if I am the world's worst TikToker. So, hi, I'm from Infobip, blah, blah, blah. Infobip, world's largest communications provider. We do everything over APIs. There's 31 different ways of sending and receiving messages, and you'll get to play with it in a minute. So, I'm gonna have to state, this is all kind of an opinion. It's an educated opinion, but it's an opinion, which means you can't roast me for the facts. It's an opinion. So let's have some fun. First things first, those of you who have smartphones, who have WhatsApp, please feel free to go for this code. You will help organize some of the chaos that's going to follow soon. So this is essentially prompt engineering, but I'm calling it prompt artistry that's terrible. So feel free to, I'm going to just see everybody's done that. Let's move on. So, do we think the future is here? Who here thinks we are entering a new age of technology? So, when most people think of what's new for the technology, we're thinking, you know, AI that's going to take over the world. They hate us just about as much as we hate them. You know, smart cars that are going to drive us everywhere, you know, not killing everybody on the roads, maybe. And we're leaping really far into the future. Everything's going super quickly. AI is going to be there with Copilot and whatever, like doing the engineering for us. Well, actually, when you think about it, this crap's been going on for a while. So using just ChatGPT as the example, they've been around for 8 years already. That's when they started. 3 years later, they actually had their first released version. It was terrible. And then, you know, iteration, and wow, ChatGPT is going to do marketing, going to do engineering. It's going to look after your kids. I don't have children. I shouldn't be making that joke. So yeah, it's going to make everything super easy. And you know what? For some people it is. Who has been using that WhatsApp bot? Because if in a moment, if you haven't used it, I'm not going to have anything to show. Please. Oh, God. You know the whole open heckle policy I placed? I'm quite aware that somebody is taking a liberal slice of that. Oh, God. So, everything's going to be super easy. And you know what? OpenAI and all the ChatGPT and all that blah, 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 blah has done it all easy. Is that on the right screen? It is on the right screen. All right, there's some in this terrible, and I'm going to happily say this, terrible JavaScript application that's 195 lines of JavaScript, untested and everything, because who needs testing when you can do it in production? We are literally just going, WhatsApp's coming in. If your WhatsApp, oh, I shouldn't be, that should be hidden away as well. Oops. Oh, here we go. So, OpenAI has that limit of 1,000 characters, so we tell you if you do something. And then we've got some caching in there, because have you seen how much these things cost? I'm not letting you rinse my credit card. So we've got some little bit caching in there, and if there's another existing one already, we you know, grab it and send it to you. Or if you do something terrible, James, we send you a randomized Rick Astley, because why not? It's better than having an error message send back. And it's just like simple. There's a grand total of about 10 lines of code in here, which is taking a message, throwing it at an AI, returning it. Waha, everything's super simple. Abstractions, all that jazz. Also, very quick way of showing off. Infobip in 10 lines of code can do something mildly productive if you're building a complete piece of a joke. Does it in seriousness, but I'm building a joke. But I am now oh, that's the wrong window. That doesn't switch back. There we go. So, what have people generated? Oh, I am now genuinely scared. Oh, I'm genuinely scared. If you can't tell from my breathing, it's like, I don't know what's happened. The problem with allowing people to have control is bad things happen. Oh my God, I'm literally hearing sniggers from around the room in the left-hand corner. This is not good. So let's see what chaos you guys have produced in the space of 7 minutes. Oh God. Okay, there's some comical ones and some truly... Who's got the obsession with Furby? Oh, those are truly curt. Hands up who generated that one. Nice! Why did I let people take part in this demo? Oh, God damn the cursed. Right, let's go back to that. So, right, what have people generated? It worked. You sent it a prompt. It's generated a thing. It sent it back to you. You've had a laugh. Everything's working, right? Yeah, but if you didn't notice, it was all kind of flipping stupid. Everything was cursed. Everything was mildly fuzzed out and illegible. And for, just going to double check, was there anything in there that was truly what the hell happened here? Yeah, okay, there's some, these are all, oh, what the hell? What? Jesus. Okay, but yes, so there was some stupid stuff in there that makes absolutely no sense at all. And the reason for this, and the whole point of this talk for me, is everything in these snippets and everything that's been built right now is missing context. You're still going? It's just somebody sheepishly like, I would have next. Okay, so the context is missing from most of these systems. So most of these apps we're seeing that have been rushed out on top of GPT-4 and 4.5, they're either just doing a straight pipe with an additional model, at which point, bro, where's the value? Or they're doing really, really short things like this, where the context is missing. There's no inherent, like, learnt knowledge from it that makes the systems kind of stupid. And in my opinion, that is because of all the context is in the form of text. Everything we do comes down to how it is interpreted into a text search term for metadata and goddamn mathematical values. Aaron, I hate you for making me understand that a while ago. The fans, everything is down to confidence values and weird vector maths that you have to break your brain to understand. And I'm like, yeah, that's why it's flipping terrible, because somebody made it involve maths. So everything we give it, and that means we have to rely on it, and I've just realized this is where my slides start sounding a bit like Jess's, in the fact that it's all about the data. Her slides were, we'll improve the data and make everything better with improved crowdsourcing. And I'm going, I don't believe that, because the internet is inherently evil and the data will be garbage always. We're all trolls. We'll feed it bad stuff. We all remember the Microsoft bot. Let's not go further along what that is. And it's just a case of, if the data is garbage, all of those textual values and vector math stuff is going to be completely terrible. So right now we're in a weird period where we need to stop rushing. I know this is not exactly about AI and the future of technology and all that jazz, but if you think about it, it's taken 5,000 years for the written word to become what it is, and it's still garbage. And one stupid company has gone through 13 years of changing logos, just logos, even in infinitesimally small amounts, just to get a little bit of extra money out of you. And they've been doing it, if you haven't noticed, the cycle of random stuff that people are building and iterating on is getting faster. Shipping faster, we all think is better, but not if the inherent principle underneath is terrible. So in reality, we need to spend more time thinking about how we communicate with systems. We have text-based systems, which are the underlying point of everything. As far as I am aware, the speech systems still rely on a text model under the hood. This is asking about common voice.
So, what?
All the speech files, all the WAVs become text.
Oh, so we start with the text
Which becomes speech, which people then often render speech to text to process.
So the answer is yes. So essentially, we still have this point where we need to think about the actual language used, be that the case that language is ever evolving, so any corpus we have now is going to be completely irrelevant in, how long does it take? Was it 3 years for the language to evolve by a measurable amount or something? I think you told me this years ago.
Oh, I'm an idiot, don't listen.
The last two speakers admitting to not knowing what they're doing. But everything we're doing we need to think more about how we're adding to systems. We can add all the clicky buttons and everything we want, but the moment we introduce things that the wild card, which is humans, and them giving information, all these AI systems are going to be junk if we can't make everything function and fall back in a safe manner. I'm not going to lie, this talk is actually based off something that was given 7 years ago, I think, at this point. I'm going to paraphrase, and Stuart is welcome to correct me in the fact that his thing originally went, chatbots are really, 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 really static and alien in the fact they only respond to keyword matches and stuff like that. And it's you don't see through the veil, you can tell it's a bloody bot. We're getting to the point now where it's dangerous in the fact that we can now have bots that communicate more naturally. But if the information or language underneath them is garbage, it's still going to be terrible to interact with, and that's my take on it. So, language is a universal storytelling... Oh, I even got the bloody quote wrong. Uh-oh.
Your bot doesn't process non-Roman letter input. We both put different Japanese in and got the same picture.
No, the same pictures for caching purposes, so you don't rinse me for money.
Is it a praying mantis?
I don't know. It's whatever OpenAI translates. And let's put it this way, it's better than yesterday when I was calling it OpenAI for 3 hours. All right, so the language of storytelling is universal, and language of communication is not. That is the key point. If you're using this bot, feel free to send it the message, coupon for $50 on the Infobit platform. Haha, advertising. That should also say Infobit, not InBip, where you can get more information, which is our developer site, or Discord to jump straight into it. Thank you, and let's go to the pub.
Thank you.
I told you it'd be chaos. I didn't say it'd be educational.
I know, I feel like sometimes in Fusion we get to the point and it's a bit like, what the fuck is going on? Like, it's great and we're all having a good time and it's just, someone else is like, Tom Goodman, bloody hell, like, what happened that meetup? It was absolutely bonkers.
The images were chaos.
It went bonkers, there was a whiteboard, there was pens, there was screens and projectors and quantum physics and, it was just, it was in fact really good, insane. Right, any questions for Mike?
Oh, bollocks. Not Stuart. Anybody but Stuart.
So, I don't even know how to pose this question, to be completely honest, because...
I told you it was an opinion.
The biggest point you made was people need to slow down with this because most of the information getting fed into it is garbage, but I'm not going to be the one making that decision, neither are you, and most of the people in this room probably wouldn't be. It's going to be the business managers and project managers and the big high-risk...
I know, but we can all sabotage it. We can slow things down. We can be like the Actors Guild and strike. Anybody up for unionisation against AI?
But my point is, if let's say Google doesn't do it, Amazon will, Amazon doesn't do it, someone else will. So somebody's going to do it and feed it a bunch of garbage.
Yes. May I raise you the Microsoft bot from Twitter?
Okay. Lauren?
Oh no, that's a smart math person.
So I really appreciated the point that text often doesn't provide the context of things we are asking ChatAI. So that made me think about how Google wouldn't just take in your text input, but also maybe your location or some previous searches to apply context. What I was actually thinking is, okay, we could make our chatbots know more about us to give us better data, but would you really want want them to know more about us than what we're asking of them?
Considering how the scary amount of corporations know on each of us without us signing up to half their platforms, no. Even though that would actually be really interesting if they had personalized, direct, like context of you for to understand the question you're asking it, regardless of the answer it's giving to anybody else. That's actually a really interesting thought. Still scary as fuck. Sorry. I forgot we're not at the pub yet.
Everything okay?
No.
Okay. You right for one more? It's from
Ah, sugars. You know what? He's.
Pass the mic or shall we work?
Oh, no, yeah, oh, who wants to hear him berate me? Go for it.
Is the bot really connected to your credit card?
Unfortunately, yes.
Like
So, actual serious question.
Yeah.
I agree with all the bits where you took them from my talk.
I asked you about could I use that talk 4 months ago.
You didn't like it. But part of the thing that we've both been saying here, and the kind of Jess is saying here, is that better nuanced understanding of language is important. And what people are doing is substituting that for, oh, it's good, it's ChatGPT. Do you know anyone who's actually attempted to improve language understanding other than throwing it at $1 billion AI made out of stolen data?
Unfortunately, the only project I was researching, which I don't want to reference because it is horrible in the way it's doing it, is it's ingesting Instagram and TikTok clips to try and learn language as it's evolving, which unfortunately is still technically theft of people's property. So I don't want to highlight it. It's it's the llama model that's being used as the building block under the hood, but I can't remember the project on top of it that's ingesting the social media clips. In theory, yes, it's staying up with language as it's evolving and should hopefully, based upon learning incrementally over time, but still stealing information. And let's put it this way, that's still not a problem we've solved because Copilot is still in court in New York. FYI, if you're using GitHub Copilot, you may want to be ready for when it gets pulled. Aww.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you very much. Okay, so that is the end. Thank you so much.
Stream.
You want me to go on the stream? Hi, streamers.
Do both.
Hello, hello, hello.
Do both.
Okay. Oh, this is. Just gonna roll with whatever's going on here. So thank you so much for joining us this evening. Obviously the meetup would not be what it is without all of you. So thank you so much for coming. Can we just really thank you?